Hello, Llewellyn King again, to show you how little federal money goes to research on chronic fatigue syndrome, which I prefer to call by its old name, myalgic encephalomyelitis. I rely on Dr. Fred Valinsky in Boston, who has sent me these statistics. There are 300,000 MS patients, and NIH provides over $1.2 billion in research funding, or about $400 per MS patient. But when we get down to ME, it's very different. It comes out $6 million, and there's some argument about whether all that is correctly spent, comes out at $1.25 per patient. That is pathetic for 1 million people in terrible, dire straits. I cannot emphasize sufficiently, except to those who know, who don't need me to emphasize to them, how absolutely awful it is to have this disease, how much of your life is gone, and gone for good, and how hard it must be for the patients to resist the temptation for pure anger against the disease, against their own luck, against their own deity, that they should have this affliction while the rest of us are walking around having full lives. My friend, in a sense, the poster woman of my life for this disease, because she told me all about it, is my friend Deborah Woroff. She was living a full, rich life. Indeed, you could have said that she was a mistress of the universe, to use Tom Wolfe's phrase, or to adapt Tom Wolfe's phrase. She was an athlete, squash, tennis, bicycling, skiing, even some flying lessons. And then, bang, 22 years ago, at the height of her professional success as an analyst and a journalist, it was all taken away from her, and she became a de facto invalid, someone who, some years, couldn't leave her bed. She told me that the worst years were 2003 and 2004, and that all the terrible thoughts that people at death's door have crossed her mind. And this, in the tremendous correspondence I've received, is true not just of her, but of 1 million Americans, some in even worse circumstance. Lovers, husbands, wives drift away. Families are terrified of contagion. And those who have no financial resources exhaust their health insurance in no time flat, and are then left to charity, to living in dreadful conditions. Lenny Jason of DePaul University told me that he knew of someone who was living in a car. I heard from someone else of a woman living in squalor, terrible squalor, because she couldn't take care of herself in one room in Miami. This is a disease that cuts across all the sort of divisions we have in society. And there's nothing standard about it. The first big outbreaks in 1985, that was not when it began. It was first traced back to 1869. But recent big American outbreaks, there was another one in England in 1955. But these two big outbreaks, one was in opulent Lake Tahoe, Incline Village, Nevada, and the other in a poor community in northwestern New York State. Nothing in common, not the pursuits of the people, not the socioeconomic conditions of the people, just the horror that came with the disease and the indifference of so many to those who suffer, a tendency to blame the sufferer, not the disease. And that tendency that comes for people who are suffering to feel that somehow, ultimately, it is their fault. If you are sick with this disease, if you are hurting, it is not your fault, and you deserve the support of your peers, the medical profession, journalists, and especially the research arms of the United States government.